I'll leave you guys alone for 5 minutes, and now James Rodriguez is signing for Minnesota. How the fuck does that happen? All right, I go away for a weekend, and I come back, and James Rodriguez is on Minnesota. There are like 300 teams in MLS, and he's chosen the coldest, most out of the way one. I mean, I have absolutely no idea where to begin with this transfer, other than the fact that it seems like something that would happen in Football Manager at some point. I mean, we all assumed that James Rodriguez would move to MLS at some point in his career trajectory. At times, after he left Real Madrid's payroll, he felt like the most obvious candidate imaginable because he fits the mold perfectly. He has a huge famous name. He represents a huge famous country in the world of football in Colombia. He has played for a lot of the biggest clubs in the world. He's not too old. He just seems to be a bit off the boil when it comes to playing at a world-class level, right? That was the perception 6 years ago, 7 years ago. And then you can go and grab somebody like that and bring him over to MLS. And hell, with somebody like Zlatan, he bounces back to Italy and wins a championship as a role player, right? Like Wayne Rooney bounced back over to England, right? These guys come over, and they might even be able to rehabilitate their image, and playing regular football again, being the guy they're feeding the ball to can help rebuild their confidence and so on and so forth. And that ability is able to separate in a way that it's not able to separate them anymore when they're playing in Europe. And I think that another important thing about MLS is that it's willing to pay the wages that are not, other decent European sides are not willing to willing to pay. You're not normally going to get bottom half. Bless me. You're not normally going to get bottom half teams in England or Spain or France or whatever, where these guys would be able to go play regularly, that are willing to pay the wages that these players feel like they demand, that are going to give them the spotlight and the attention that they feel like they demand. And so I figured 2019, 2020, whatever, James Rodriguez was going to head over to MLS in his late 20s. He was going to be a marquee guy in the league. He was going to be the next, David Beckham, the Latin American David Beckham that's appeared in the league. And he was going to be playing down in Florida or over in California and doing that sort of thing. But now we've ended up in a twilight zone because James Rodriguez has been in the footballing wilderness ever since 2021. All right, he was at Everton. Obviously, he made a weird one-year move to Everton, had its ups and downs. And then he decided to leave Everton to go to Al Rayyan. And I think that's in Qatar. Honestly, we're going to do a little legwork, a little research here. That is in the Qatar Stars League. Plays there for 1 year, bounces to Olympiacos. And you'll notice a trend that he's kind of gone throughout his entire career from this point, right? He goes to Al Rayyan, and then on September 15th, 2022, he separates from Al Rayyan, mutual agreement. Al Rayyan and the player parted ways. Then he goes to Olympiacos, and by April 13th, he is mutually terminating his contract with Olympiacos. So the next year, he goes to Sao Paulo in July of 2023. Now, this is a country that plays summer leagues, right? So he jumps in mid-season, plays through. An injury suffered in training left him out for the final 3 matches of the season. And the arrival of Luis Zubeldia knocks him out of the starting lineup. And by July 2024, which is, again, a year after he goes to Sao Paulo, right? We've got Qatar, we've got Greece for some reason, we've got Sao Paulo in Brazil. He leaves by mutual consent. And of course, he's leaving because that gives him an opportunity to sign for a club. Maybe he got a phone call from a European club coming into this season, Rayo Vallecano. And if you don't know anything about Rayo Vallecano, they actually had a pretty darn good season last year. They managed to qualify for Europe, but he only made 7 appearances over the course of the entire season. And by January, it would be, he wasn't there for the entire season. By January, it became clear that he wasn't a part of the team the way he wanted to be. So the contract was terminated by mutual consent. That means that over the course of his last 4 years, in his last 4 clubs, every single club that he has played for, he has departed with a mutual contract cessation. Right? His mutually agreed contract has been mutually terminated. He's decided to leave, and the club's been like, cool, fucking leave. 4 consecutive times. That brings him to León in Mexico, where he was the captain and played over the course of the year. He actually played regularly as he's played in a very long time in a league that offers, no offense to the Qatari Stars League here, but offers, a really serious amount of competitive level. I think at Olympiacos, he would have gotten some of that. In his first half of the season that he was at Sao Paulo, he would have gotten some of that. But with León in Mexico, he played 31 matches over the course of, in an actual season. And at the end of that actual season, Lyon decided not to renew his contract. The season ends, and they're like, you know what? Let's not. This makes James Rodriguez a free agent for the 5th time in 5 years. This is not the look, and I realize we're going into a World Cup, and this guy might chest and volley a ball off the crossbar again and make me look like an idiot. This is not the James Rodriguez that we are accustomed to seeing. This is not the James Rodriguez that, he's starting to turn into Memo Ochoa. You don't even think about him at all unless you were thinking about the Colombian national team, right? He is somebody that just is supposed to spawn in and be who he was. When I think it's incredibly, remarkably clear that for really 5 years, James Rodriguez has not been who he was. He's a player that is above average in the Mexican League. Right now, I have watched, actually, it's pretty rare for me over here, America. I have watched James Rodriguez play in person, and it is true. He is one of those people that the way he touches the ball, the way he strikes the ball, I watched him score a goal. It is different, right? There's always those players that their technical level, their ability when the ball gets near them is just different. It separates amongst other world-class athletes. But that has not mattered for James Rodriguez for years. It hasn't mattered for James for years. I mean, this guy, the last time that he was really playing at any serious level was Everton. And that ended, at the end of the 2021 season. It's 2026. It's February 2026. We are damn near full 5 years away from the last time James Rodriguez was touching a ball in earnest in really what we would consider the highest level of the sport. Obviously, he still does it for Colombia, right? He has the Messi role at Colombia. Obviously, I would say Messi's is more hard-earned, but the idea is essentially that he is the chosen one. He's the player that we are going to play around with this national team. And I would imagine in a similar way Gareth Bale did it, he elevates his level for the national team. Maybe, all he cares about is Colombia golf and then whatever club he's playing for. That's totally fair. I wouldn't be surprised if that was the way that any of this worked. Or that, if that was the way that all of this worked. Because he's James Rodriguez. He obviously has the ability, but he's also 34, right? And this is somebody that burst onto the scene now 12 years ago as an heir apparent to being one of the great players in the world, and now he's on Minnesota United. And I think the fact that he's ended up on Minnesota United is such an incredible indictment of how far he has fallen. Because for years, the rumor about James Rodriguez is at LA Galaxy, LAFC, Enter Miami, that these teams would want to pick up James Rodriguez because he would be this marquee guy in the league. Minnesota is just not that team. They're capable of being good. Right, but this is one of the least sexy teams in the league, right? And I mean absolutely no offense to the fine people of this club, which it is a wonderful club that competes at a high level, has great traditions, great fans. It's not sexy. It's very cold. And it's not like Minnesota United has fully rolled out the red carpet here either. Because James Rodriguez and Minnesota United have signed what is essentially a contract until the World Cup. Right, this is the Gareth Bale deal, but it's not in LA. It's in Minnesota. Right, so he's going to Minnesota to play and play regularly and get fit until the World Cup, and then the contract has to be agreed mutually to continue after the World Cup. Okay, so Minnesota's not committing a lot of resources to this either. And if Minnesota could get James Rodriguez, I think there were a lot of teams that decided they didn't want him. A lot of teams. LAFC is a good team. And I don't think they wanted to mess it up to bring in the corpse of James Rodriguez. LA Galaxy's in the same situation. They got Ricky Puig trying to come back from an injury, right? They won the championship 2 years ago. I don't think they wanted to deal with this. Enter Miami's already got an old folks home up front. Adding James Rodriguez to it would make their defense so non-existent you wouldn't be able to find it with a microscope. So they're definitely not interested. And I guess other sexier teams, even like in New York, didn't pick up the phone. Because in what world would James Rodriguez say yes to playing in Minnesota otherwise? And the craziest part of all of this, he's not even a designated player. He's a cost-effective signing for Minnesota. For those that don't know, MLS clubs have a couple of designated players that don't count towards the salary cap. Those are the players that you pay a ton of money to. because they don't count towards the salary cap. Messi's a designated player, for example. James isn't one. He's signing a non-designated player contract at Minnesota. He's just signing a normal player contract at Minnesota that needs mutual agreement to continue after the World Cup. There is what that tells me, and it kind of makes me sad because James Rodriguez is a fabulous player who I have nothing against. No other club that plays at any sort of competitive level relative to MLS wanted him. Minnesota realized they didn't want him and went, shoot. Well, they found an economically viable deal to be able to bring in a guy that obviously has more technical skill than anybody else on their team. I mean, it's James freaking Rodriguez here, right? And they're hoping that he'll be emotionally invested, but they're hedging their bets because this contract can end right at the World Cup, right? It is just an obvious marriage of convenience. James has found a club in a respectable enough league that's going to be willing and to give him the playing time he wants to get ready for the World Cup. And Minnesota United's found a player that can offer them some quality and, almost more importantly, bring them notoriety and shirt sales. Because, a Minnesota United James Rodriguez jersey is going to be in a lot of birthday wrapping paper in Colombia, right? It brings eyeballs to one of the teams in MLS that necessarily, would otherwise isn't necessarily able to court a lot of those eyeballs. It's an impressive move by Minnesota United. I think it makes sense for both of the parties involved. But it's just jarring to see somebody of the level of James Rodriguez at the age of 34 sign a normal player contract at Minnesota United. It's jarring. It is. He's not even a designated player. It's not like they're giving him 10% stake in the team. They're just paying him a commiserate wage that fits in their salary cap. Like, what even is that for James?